A couple days ago we went over how PSVR2 and VR in general has transformed the horror experience for me, but today I'm going to be recommending you the games that I think are the best horror titles on PSVR2 if you want to go and get stuck in. Now of course there will be other ones outside of this list, these are only the games that I have played, which is a fair few considering I'm a newly converted horror fan, but obviously I don't want to recommend you something that isn't something that I've actually played because that would be silly. I'm going to be a little bit unorthodox with these lists, some of these are going to be a little bit out there, but the first one is out there in a different sense. This is Cosmodread, a roguelike horror game set in space. This is made by one solo developer, and you can kind of tell as you play there's a lack of weighty sound effects. And obviously the game has some visual limitations because of its one-man dev team, but it does a really nice job of setting a really great atmosphere, especially in the opening few hours where you don't know what's coming. Over the course of your playthrough, you'll be able to refine and tune what you need to do to complete your run, but it'll definitely give you a couple of scares, and with the mutators you can keep things fresh and scary as you go. If you're looking for a space horror game that goes on sale fairly cheap, this is one to look out for. If you want a horror game that's more focused on the feeling of existential dread and feeling like you're somewhere where you don't belong, or if you're megalophobic, you should take a look at the Utility Room. Now this game is quite short. The main campaign is about 45 minutes long with an extended edition that doubles the runtime, but you'll find yourself in basically the back rooms of reality with massive stone obelisks moving around in a place where you feel like you really shouldn't be. There are some actual proper scares in this one, in terms of things popping out at you, but the main sense of horror and terror here is by the build-up of atmosphere, sound design, and the huge structures around you that feel just too large to move on their own, but somehow they do, and that's very freaky. I can't quite explain it. If you get the vibe from this video, it's much worse in the headset, it's quite scary, but yeah, give it a go. The next game is Grand Rush Highway, Car Traffic Simulator. This is a horror game because it's fucking awful. Stay away. Okay, back to serious reality land here. I want to shout out Saints and Sinners Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. While these games are a little more stealth, action, combat oriented and exploration oriented, there are some real segments throughout this which are terrifying, especially in Chapter 2. In the night levels, the horror roots of The Walking Dead really start to show. When you're exploring abandoned buildings with walkers all around, those can be some really tense and scary moments, and some of the most scary moments I've had on PSVR2, especially in the videos that I've done on it, have been in Saints and Sinners Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So don't overlook them if you're looking for a horror experience. Just know if you're going into the game, you're going to be getting involved with a lot of survival, crafting, and stealth. In a similar vein, I do want to shout out Into the Radius, because truthfully this game has some properly scary moments. Some are scripted and intended to happen, and some just happen because of its combat loop. In a similar way though, you're getting into a lot of survival, stealth, and combat, like with Saints and Sinners here, and horror isn't primarily the focus, but there are several instances, especially at night again, where you're properly terrified. At least, I get terrified. Several enemies that you come across later on, such as the APC and sliders, fuck sliders, are also terrifying. So if you want some survival horror games, those last two that I've mentioned should be right up your street. What isn't scary are OVRDark, the paid partner of today's video. These are channel sponsors. You know them, you love them, so do I. OVRDark make prescription lens inserts for all VR headsets, but specifically for today, I'm going to be mentioning the PSVR2 ones. I use them on my headset. They have both non-magnetic and magnetic inserts, whether you want to swap them out easily or whether you want a slightly more comforting and slim-fitting mount. They have anti-glare and anti-blue light filters and are tuned custom to your prescription, so check them out in the description below. Thank you to OVRDark sponsoring today's video. Let's go on to the next game. One that I will tentatively recommend to you is Happyfunland, because this game has a lot of flaws. I covered it in my original video and my revisit. Even with patches, the game is quite fuzzy. The controls leave a bit to be desired in terms of movement options, but there is no other game that lets you freely explore a theme park in virtual reality. That's what Happyfunland nails, is each of the parts of the theme park that feel fleshed out. Some of the animatronics that you fight are very on brand for the place that you're in, and while the story is a little bit out there and doesn't take itself seriously, there are a couple scares to be had. However, please do your research, take a look at my original review, because bloody hell, it's got a lot of problems. But if you're into that sort of thing, you will probably end up enjoying it. A game I can more comfortably recommend right now is Switchback VR. This is a rollercoaster Until Dawn Rush of Blood type of game. It's a spiritual successor to that one, and essentially has you going through the Dark Pictures games, all those environments, fighting off enemies, getting spooked along the way, and it's had a load of work done to it since launch to make sure it looks very good and plays very good. So I'd happily recommend it now. No horror list would be complete without Five Nights at Freddy's as well. I haven't played Help Wanted 2, but I think, to be honest, it's probably best that I'm not recommending it here because the original game, Help Wanted 1, seems to be the scarier of the two. We also have Secrets of the Mimic, I want to say, is the new one coming out. That's confirmed to PSVR2 supported and looks fantastic from what we've heard. But the game I'm going to be recommending to you now is the original Help Wanted, which covers most of the original games and a couple of additional modes. This will give you a load of content to blast through. It's the traditional FNAF formula, but much more scary because you're actually in there. I put some friends from my university on this game, and yeah, it got some great reactions. So hopefully that, what I've just shown you, is a bit of an endorsement to how scary this game is. If you want a horror game to show off to friends or family at Halloween, please pick this one up. It's really easy to pick up and learn because you're just pushing buttons, and it gets some great reactions out of people. It's a great party game. I've got to recommend Madison as well, one of the most highly polished PSVR2 games out there, really. Visually, it's almost unmatched. In terms of scares, it's probably the only horror game on the channel that I haven't finished all the way through because it simply terrified me a bit too much. I will finish it maybe this Halloween, might be a good idea. But Madison is seriously scary. I don't want to spoil too much for you, but you're essentially investigating murders, as you often do in horror games, and things quickly go sideways, leading to a very uncomfortable experience. Seriously though, Madison is one of the best horror games on PSVR2 and in VR in general, or even in the horror genre in general. Fantastic, go and play it if you're a horror fan, if you somehow haven't already. In a similar vein, OVRDark is also an indie horror game like Madison, and isn't quite as polished in certain areas, but it's still pretty damn good and nails that Resident Evil sort of atmosphere and vibe with the puzzles it throws at you and the enemy design and the actual world design as well. It's one I didn't expect to be so good and fun and polished, and I'd happily recommend it to anybody who likes Resident Evil and is looking for a brand new horror game on Halloween for PSVR2. And finally, gotta cap it off with the big hitters, Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 8. If you're looking for a far more scary experience, go for Resident Evil 8 here, I'm gonna highlight, even though I probably preferred 4 in my playthrough overall as a game, Resident Evil 8 was definitely the scarier of the two. Throwing you in with a load of terrifying enemies, some of the best looking VR environments since Half-Life Alyx, and just a big budget story to enjoy yourself in. It gets a little bit more action focused towards the end, but in the opening couple of hours, especially when everything's fresh and new to you, if you haven't played this one already, please go and do so. If you're also looking to ease yourself into horror gaming through VR, Resident Evil 8 is also a great way to do that as well. Even though I'm tearing it up here as quite a scary experience, as it can be, it's probably on the lower end of the scary spectrum in this video, and it's all around just a fantastic VR game, so please go and play it if you haven't already. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you did enjoy. What horror games do you love on PSVR2? Please go and let me know. Thank you to our patrons and YouTube members, Luke Bentley, Phil Irving, Hazit Mirza, Ace Gamer, Hippie Pickle, Shin007, The License to Chill, Sun WTF, Fat Controllers, The Game Cat, Andrew Aaronwright, Jason Parker, Lamar Hall, Jordy Bandsman, Lemon64K, Alcus VR, Prophecy777, Gundy, Salvador, and David Gephardt. Thank you for watching once again, and I'll see you all in the next one.